Raymond Johnson, a young Nigerian billionaire, sat in his sprawling Lagos mansion. The golden chandelier sparkled above him, and the marble floors gleamed under the soft lights. But none of it brought him peace. His life was a paradox. He had everything money could buy, but lacked the one thing his heart truly craved: genuine love. By the time Raymond turned 28, he had turned his company into a global powerhouse, making him one of the richest men in Africa. Yet his heart ached with loneliness. He had dated countless women, attended high society parties, and traveled the world. But every relationship felt hollow. They all wanted the billionaire, not the man behind the money. One sleepless night, Raymond stared out from his balcony, the Lagos skyline twinkling before him. "What if I'm looking for love in the wrong places?" he murmured. He thought of his grandmother's stories, of meeting his grandfather in the most unexpected way, not in wealth, but in humility. An idea began to form in his mind, bold yet thrilling. The next morning, he called his loyal driver, David, who had been with the family for over a decade. "David, I've made a decision," Raymond began. "For the next few months, I want to live as an ordinary man, a beggar to be exact." David's jaw dropped. "Ogre Raymond, beggar, are you sure you're okay? Why would you want to do such a thing?" Raymond smiled faintly. "To find someone who loves me for who I am, not for my wealth. I need you to help me prepare. Get me some old clothes, something that looks worn out. I'll also need a fake backstory. We'll park the cars far from wherever I'll be begging." Though skeptical, David knew better than to argue with his boss. "As you wish, sir, but I hope you know what you're doing." The transformation was striking. Gone were Raymond's tailored suits and polished shoes. Instead, he wore tattered clothes that smelled faintly of dust and sweat. His neatly trimmed beard was replaced with a scruffy, unkempt look, and his perfectly styled hair was now a messy mop. He carried a small, battered tin can, completing the image of a man down on his luck. "You look different," David said as Raymond stepped out of his private dressing room. "Good," Raymond replied. "Now, let's begin." They drove to a bustling part of Lagos, where street vendors, workers, and beggars mingled in the chaotic rhythm of the city. Raymond took a deep breath as he stepped out of the car and walked to a busy corner. David watched from a distance, ready to intervene if necessary. Raymond sat on the pavement, the tin can resting in front of him. For hours, people passed by without a second glance. Some muttered insults, while others tossed a few naira into his can without stopping. It was humbling, and for the first time Raymond felt invisible. As the sun began to set, a young woman with kind eyes approached him. She held a bag of groceries and seemed to hesitate before speaking. "Excuse me, are you hungry?" she asked, her voice soft. Raymond looked up, startled. "Yes, ma'am," he replied, keeping his tone humble. She reached into her bag and handed him a loaf of bread and a bottle of water. "Here you go, take care of yourself," she said, offering a small smile before walking away. Raymond's heart swelled. Could this be the beginning of something real? He wanted to thank her properly, maybe strike up a conversation, but she was gone before he could muster the courage. When David picked him up that evening, Raymond's thoughts were racing. "Today was eye-opening," he told his driver, "but it's just the beginning. Tomorrow I'll be back." And so the gamble began. A billionaire in disguise, searching for a love that money couldn't buy. Raymond returned to the same street corner the next day, feeling a strange mixture of anticipation and nervousness. The memory of the kind woman who had offered him food lingered in his mind, but he knew every day would bring something different. Today, the bustling Lagos street felt even more chaotic. Hawkers called out their wares, the pungent smell of roasted corn and fried plantains filled the air, and the blaring horns of impatient drivers added to the cacophony. Raymond sat down on the cracked pavement, his tin can resting in front of him. The morning passed uneventfully, with people mostly ignoring him or tossing in small coins. He studied their faces, looking for any sign of empathy, but most were too preoccupied with their own lives to notice him. Around midday, a woman in a bright yellow dress caught his eye. She was young, probably in her mid-20s, and carried herself with an air of confidence. Her dark braids swayed as she walked, and her face had a natural beauty that needed no enhancement. Raymond's heart skipped a beat. Perhaps she could be the one. He waited until she came closer, then hesitantly called out, "Excuse me, ma'am, can you spare some change?" The woman stopped abruptly and turned to look at him. For a moment, Raymond thought he saw a flicker of compassion in her eyes, but then her expression hardened and she wrinkled her nose in disgust. "Ugh, don't come near me," she said sharply. "You should be ashamed of yourself sitting here and begging. Why don't you go find a job?" Raymond was taken aback by the venom in her words. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't mean to. Just stay away from me," she snapped, stepping around him as if he were a pile of trash. Raymond watched her walk away, his heart sinking. He had expected rejection, but the sheer cruelty of her words stung more than he cared to admit. As the day wore on, the heat became almost unbearable. Raymond's throat was dry, and his stomach growled from hunger. He began to question whether his plan was worth it. But just as he was about to leave, a commotion erupted nearby. Shouts filled the air, and people began running in different directions. "Thief! Thief!" someone screamed. Raymond turned to see a man sprinting through the crowd, clutching a woman's handbag. An elderly woman, the apparent victim, was frantically calling for help, her voice trembling with fear. Before Raymond could process what was happening, a young woman in a police uniform burst onto the scene. She was swift and precise, her every movement radiating determination. Raymond watched in awe as she chased the thief through the chaotic street. The man weaved through the crowd, knocking over market stalls and scattering goods in his path, but the officer was relentless. Suddenly, the thief pulled out a gun, causing all onlookers to gasp and scatter in fear. The officer didn't flinch. Instead, she moved with calculated precision, her hand darting to her belt to draw her own weapon. Raymond held his breath as the standoff unfolded before him. "Drop the bag and the weapon," the officer commanded, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. The thief hesitated, his eyes darting around as if looking for an escape. Then, with a sudden burst of courage, the officer lunged forward, disarming him in one swift motion. The crowd erupted into cheers as she retrieved the stolen bag and cuffed the thief. Raymond was stunned. He had never seen such bravery up close. As the officer handed the bag back to the elderly woman, Raymond felt a surge of admiration. This woman was different. She was fearless, selfless, and undoubtedly intelligent. Could she be the one? Gathering his courage, Raymond approached her cautiously. "Excuse me, officer, that was incredible. You're amazing." The officer turned to him, her expression softening slightly. "Thank you, just doing my job." Raymond hesitated, unsure of how to continue. "I'd like to get to know you better. You're really inspiring." The officer chuckled, shaking her head. "That's sweet, but I'm not interested in men. Sorry to disappoint." Raymond's heart sank, but he managed a small smile. "No need to apologize. Thank you for your service." As she walked away, Raymond couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and disappointment. His journey for true love was proving to be more complicated than he had imagined. Still, he refused to give up. Tomorrow was another day, and the streets of Lagos were full of possibilities. Raymond woke up the next day with a renewed sense of curiosity and determination. The memory of the brave police officer lingered in his mind. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her courage and composure in the face of danger had left an indelible mark on him. While he knew there was no romantic possibility with her, he couldn't help but feel inspired. This experience had shown him that real heroes existed, and it only strengthened his resolve to continue his search for genuine love. He returned to the streets, ready to meet new people and uncover the depths of human nature. This time, however, he chose a different location, hoping to expand his perspective. The bustling marketplace he ventured into was a hive of activity, with vendors shouting over one another, buyers haggling loudly, and children darting through the crowd. It was chaotic, yet vibrant, showing the energy of Lagos. As Raymond positioned himself on a corner, pretending to beg, he noticed a group of young men lingering nearby. Their shifty glances and hushed conversations set off alarms in his mind. He'd seen enough movies to recognize the look of troublemakers. One of the men, a tall figure with a scar across his cheek, seemed to be the ringleader. Raymond pretended not to notice as they began approaching him, their footsteps slow and deliberate. "Hey, beggar," Scarface sneered, towering over Raymond. "You've been sitting here all day. How much have you made?" Raymond's heart raced, but he kept his voice steady. "Not much, sir. Just a few coins." Scarface smirked and motioned to one of his friends, who snatched Raymond's tin can. The few naira notes and coins inside clinked as they hit the ground. "That's it? You're wasting our time," Scarface growled. "Maybe you've got something else of value." Before Raymond could respond, a loud, commanding voice rang out. "Leave him alone." Raymond turned to see the same police officer from the day before, striding toward them, her hand already on her holstered weapon. Her presence was electrifying, and the group of young men immediately backed off, their bravado evaporating. "We were just leaving," Scarface muttered, retreating with his gang. The officer's steely gaze followed them until they disappeared into the crowd. She turned to Raymond, her expression softening. "Are you okay?" Raymond nodded, his admiration for her growing. "Thank you, you always seem to show up at the right time." The officer gave him a small smile. "Just doing my job. Be careful out here, not everyone has good intentions." As she walked away, Raymond couldn't help but marvel at her bravery once again. He realized that while she might not be the love he was searching for, she had taught him a valuable lesson about strength and integrity. His journey was far from over, but he was beginning to see the kind of qualities he truly valued in a partner. With a renewed sense of purpose, he prepared for the next chapter of his quest for true love. Raymond's next venture brought him to a quiet, cozy coffee shop on the outskirts of Lagos. Unlike the bustling streets he had explored before, this place felt calm and inviting. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the soft hum of conversation and the occasional clang of cups. It was the perfect setting to observe people and perhaps meet someone who valued connection over appearances. Dressed in his usual tattered clothes, Raymond hesitated as he stepped into the shop. The contrast between his appearance and the sophisticated patrons was stark. Men in crisp suits and women in elegant dresses filled all the tables, sipping lattes and cappuccinos. Heads turned, some with curiosity, others with disdain, as Raymond made his way to a corner seat. The barista, a young woman named Anita, noticed him immediately. Her short afro framed her kind face, and her sharp eyes darted to the worn tin can he carried. She approached him cautiously. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, her voice a mixture of professionalism and curiosity. "Can I help you?" Raymond offered a small, nervous smile. "I'm just looking for a place to rest, if it's all right. I'll sit quietly in the corner." Anita hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Of course. Would you like some coffee?" Raymond's eyes widened. He hadn't expected such kindness. "I don't have money to pay." Anita waved a hand dismissively. "It's fine. It's on the house." She turned and returned moments later with a steaming cup of coffee. "Here you go. Enjoy." Raymond thanked her sincerely, his heart warming at her gesture. Over the next few days, he made the coffee shop his regular spot. Anita's kindness never wavered, and she always greeted him with a smile and a free cup of coffee. She even started small conversations with him, asking about his day and his life. But Raymond noticed something peculiar about Anita. While she was kind and welcoming to him, she had a sharp wit and a no-nonsense demeanor with other customers. One evening, as he watched her deftly handle a rude patron who complained about his latte being too hot, Raymond couldn't help but admire her. She had a strength and independence that drew him in. One rainy evening, the shop was quieter than usual. Anita took the opportunity to sit across from Raymond during her break. "So what's your story?" she asked, her tone light but her eyes curious. Raymond hesitated. He had prepared a backstory for such moments, but Anita's genuine interest made him feel uneasy about lying. Still, he couldn't reveal his true identity yet. "I'm just a man trying to find his way," he said vaguely. "Life hasn't been easy, but I'm grateful for kind people like you." Anita studied him for a moment, as if trying to piece together a puzzle. "Well, whatever your journey is, I hope you find what you're looking for." Their conversations grew longer with each passing day. Raymond found himself looking forward to his visits to the coffee shop, not just for Anita's kindness, but for her company. She had a sharp mind and a quick sense of humor that kept him engaged. For the first time since he began his quest, he felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps Anita could be the one. But things took a dramatic turn one afternoon. Raymond had just settled into his usual corner when a group of well-dressed women entered the shop. They were loud and brash, their laughter cutting through the quiet ambience. One of them, a striking woman with bright red lipstick and an air of arrogance, spotted Raymond. "Oh my God, look at this place," she said loudly, her voice dripping with disdain. "And look at him, a beggar in a coffee shop." Raymond tensed as the group's attention turned to him. Anita, who was behind the counter, froze, her eyes darting between Raymond and the women. "What kind of establishment allows this?" the woman continued, addressing Anita directly. "Why is he here? He's ruining the atmosphere." Anita's expression hardened. "He's a customer, just like everyone else. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to leave." The woman's jaw dropped. "Excuse me? Do you know who I am?" "No, and I don't care," Anita shot back, "but I do know that everyone deserves respect." The tension in the room was palpable as the woman glared at Anita. Finally, she huffed and stormed out, her friends trailing behind her. Raymond watched the scene unfold with a mixture of awe and guilt. Anita had stood up for him, risking her reputation and possibly her job. Later that evening, Raymond approached her. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You didn't have to do that." Anita shrugged, her expression softening. "It was the right thing to do. Don't let people like that get to you." Raymond's admiration for her grew, but so did his uncertainty. Could she truly care for him if she knew who he really was? Or was she simply kind to everyone? The turning point came a week later. Raymond decided to open up to Anita, at least partially. "Anita," he began hesitantly, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him curiously. "What is it?" Raymond took a deep breath. "I haven't been entirely honest with you. I'm not just a beggar. I'm searching for something, for someone who sees me for who I really am." Anita frowned, her sharp mind clearly processing his words. "What do you mean?" Before Raymond could elaborate, the shop's door burst open. Two men in suits entered, their eyes scanning the room before landing on Raymond. One of them approached directly. "Sir, your presence is requested," he said curtly. Anita's eyes widened as she looked between Raymond and the men. "What's going on?" Raymond stood, his heart pounding. The men were part of his security detail, clearly sent by David, who must have grown concerned about his prolonged absence. I have to go," he said, avoiding Anita's gaze. "Raymond, wait," she called after him, but he was already being escorted out. As the car sped away, Raymond's mind raced. He had wanted to reveal his true self to Anita, but now she would be left with more questions than answers. Would she think he had deceived her? Would she want anything to do with him if she learned the truth? The next day, Raymond returned to the coffee shop, but Anita was nowhere to be seen. He asked another barista about her, only to learn she had taken the day off. The uncertainty gnawed at him. Had he lost his chance with her, or would fate bring them together again? The suspense of their next meeting loomed over him, making his quest for true love more complicated than ever. The following morning, Raymond decided to take a break from his routine of visiting the coffee shop. Instead, he walked through a bustling marketplace, hoping the chaos and activity might help clear his mind. The streets were alive with vendors calling out their wares, the smell of freshly fried akara and jollof rice wafting through the air, and the chatter of customers negotiating prices. As Raymond wandered aimlessly, he noticed a sleek black car parked by the side of the road. A young woman dressed in an elegant yet understated gown stepped out of the car. Her face was radiant, her features soft yet commanding. She seemed out of place amidst the noise and dust of the market. Raymond watched, intrigued, as she walked toward a vendor selling fresh flowers. But as he approached her, something unexpected happened. Two imposing bodyguards appeared out of nowhere and blocked his path. One of them grabbed Raymond roughly by the arm and shoved him backward. "Stay away from her," the bodyguard growled, his eyes cold. Raymond stumbled and fell to the ground. As he tried to collect himself, a voice rang out, "Hey, leave him alone." Turning, Raymond saw a petite woman running toward him. Her face was flushed with anger, her eyes blazing. She knelt beside Raymond and helped him to his feet. "Are you okay?" she asked, brushing dust off his clothes. Raymond nodded, his heart pounding. "I'm fine, thank you." The woman turned to the bodyguards, her tone sharp. "What's wrong with you? He's just a man trying to walk through the market. You have no right to treat him like that." The bodyguards exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. The young woman they were protecting had noticed the commotion and was now walking toward them. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice calm but authoritative. "Nothing, ma'am," one of the bodyguards replied quickly, "just a misunderstanding." The young woman's eyes shifted to Raymond, who stood awkwardly beside his rescuer. Her gaze lingered for a moment before she nodded. "Let's go," she said, turning back to her car. The bodyguards followed, casting wary glances over their shoulders. As the car drove away, Raymond turned to the woman who had come to his aid. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You didn't have to do that." She smiled, her expression softening. It was the right thing to do. Some people think they can treat others badly just because they have money and power. It's not right. Raymond studied her for a moment. She had a quiet strength about her, a sense of justice that reminded him of the police officer he had encountered before. "Can I buy you a drink?" he asked impulsively. She laughed lightly. "I think it's my turn to treat you. Come on, there's a small eatery nearby." Over a simple meal of rice and stew, Raymond and the woman, whose name was Sophie, talked about their lives. Raymond stuck to his fabricated story of being a struggling graduate, unable to find a job, but he found himself wanting to tell her more. Sophie listened intently, her empathy clear in her eyes. She shared her own struggles, talking about her job as a schoolteacher and her dreams of opening a center for underprivileged children. By the time they parted ways, Raymond felt a spark he hadn't experienced in a long time. Sophie's kindness, intelligence, and sense of purpose had left a deep impression on him. As he watched her disappear into the crowd, he knew he wanted to see her again. His quest for true love had taken another unexpected turn, and for the first time in days he felt hopeful. Over the following days, Raymond found himself returning to the marketplace, hoping to see Sophie again. His heart raced each time he spotted her familiar silhouette moving through the crowds. They began meeting frequently, sometimes by chance and sometimes by intention. Each encounter left Raymond feeling more drawn to her, captivated by her warmth and sincerity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the market in a warm golden glow, Sophie spotted Raymond sitting by the corner where they had first met. She approached with a soft smile, holding a small bag of roasted peanuts. "You're becoming a regular here," she teased, handing him the bag. "Are you sure you're not stalking me?" Raymond chuckled. "Maybe I'm just drawn to good company." Their conversations flowed effortlessly, weaving between light-hearted banter and deeper topics. Sophie spoke passionately about her work as a teacher and her aspirations to make a difference in her community. Raymond, sticking to his fabricated story, shared tales of his supposed struggles, all while grappling with the growing desire to reveal his true identity. As they walked together through the bustling market, Sophie suddenly paused in front of a small street performer, a young boy juggling brightly colored balls. A small crowd had gathered, clapping and cheering as the boy performed daring tricks. Sophie's eyes lit up with delight. "Isn't he amazing?" she said, her excitement infectious. Raymond nodded, but his attention was focused on Sophie. In that moment, her laughter and genuine joy seemed to light up the entire street. He realized he was falling for her, and the thought both thrilled and terrified him. As the performance ended and the crowd dispersed, Sophie turned to Raymond with a thoughtful expression. "You know, you're different from most people I've met. There's something genuine about you." Raymond's heart skipped a beat. "I could say the same about you," he replied. Their bond deepened with each passing day, and Raymond's feelings for Sophie grew stronger. But his secret loomed over him like a storm cloud, casting shadows over their blossoming connection. He knew he couldn't keep up the charade forever, but the fear of losing her kept him silent. One night, as they sat together under the stars, sharing stories and laughter, Sophie's expression turned serious. "Raymond, I know you're hiding something," she said softly. Raymond stiffened. "What do you mean?" "You don't have to tell me if you're not ready," she continued, her gaze steady, "but I want you to know that you can trust me." Her words hit Raymond like a bolt of lightning. He opened his mouth to speak, to tell her everything, but the sound of a loud commotion from the market interrupted him. Voices shouted and people began scattering in all directions. "What's going on?" Sophie asked, standing quickly. Raymond followed her gaze and saw a group of men chasing after a thief who had snatched a woman's purse. The thief darted through the crowd, clutching the bag tightly, but his path was cut off by a police officer who appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Raymond recognized her instantly as the same officer he had admired weeks ago. The thief, cornered and desperate, pulled out a knife, causing the crowd to gasp and retreat. Sophie instinctively stepped closer to Raymond, her hand brushing against his arm. "This could get dangerous," she whispered. Raymond watched in awe as the officer remained calm, her hand on her holstered weapon. "Drop the knife and the bag," she commanded, her voice steady and authoritative. The thief hesitated, his eyes darting around for an escape route. Sensing the tension, the officer took a step closer, her movements deliberate and controlled. "This doesn't have to end badly," she said. "Just put the knife down." For a moment, it seemed as though the thief might comply, but then with a sudden burst of energy, he lunged toward the officer. The crowd screamed, but the officer was faster. She sidestepped his attack and expertly disarmed him, sending the knife clattering to the ground. Within seconds, she had the thief pinned and in handcuffs. The crowd erupted into applause as the officer returned the stolen bag to its owner. Raymond turned to Sophie, whose face was a mixture of relief and admiration. "She's incredible," Sophie said, echoing Raymond's own thoughts from weeks ago. As the crowd began to disperse, Raymond and Sophie continued their walk, the excitement of the moment leaving them both energized. But as they talked, Raymond couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. He needed to tell Sophie the truth before it was too late. The opportunity came sooner than he expected. A few days later, as they sat together by the waterfront, Sophie turned to him with a curious expression. "Raymond, why do you come here every day?" she asked. "What are you looking for?" Raymond took a deep breath, the weight of his secret pressing heavily on him. "Sophie, there's something I need to tell you," he began. "Something I should have told you from the start." Sophie's brow furrowed, but she remained silent, waiting for him to continue. Raymond hesitated, his heart pounding. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm not just a struggling graduate." Before he could finish, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was David, his driver and confidant. Reluctantly, Raymond answered, his voice tense. "What is it?" "Sir, there's an emergency at the office," David said. "You need to come immediately." Raymond sighed, his frustration mounting. "I'll be there soon." He turned back to Sophie, his expression filled with regret. "I'm sorry, I have to go, but I promise I'll explain everything soon." Sophie nodded, though her eyes reflected a hint of disappointment. "I'll hold you to that," she said softly. As Raymond walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that his double life was beginning to unravel. The stakes were higher than ever, and he knew that the next time he saw Sophie, he'd have to lay everything on the line, his secrets, his wealth, and his heart. Raymond knew he couldn't keep Sophie in the dark much longer. His feelings for her had grown beyond what he had expected, and her kindness and sincerity made him question why he hadn't told her the truth sooner. Yet doubt crept into his mind. What if she reacted like the others he had tested in the past? Could she truly love him for who he was, not for his wealth? One evening, as Raymond discussed his dilemma with David during a drive, the loyal driver proposed an idea. "Sir, if you truly want to know how loyal she is, why don't we test her? Let me approach her, pretending to be someone wealthy and interested in her. If she resists, then you'll know she's genuine." Raymond hesitated. The idea felt manipulative, but the fear of heartbreak and betrayal outweighed his reservations. "All right, David," he said after a long pause, "but be respectful. I don't want this to feel like a trap." The next day, David dressed in one of Raymond's finest suits and drove Raymond's most luxurious car to the spot where Sophie often passed after work. He waited patiently until he spotted her familiar figure walking toward the bus stop. "Excuse me, miss," David called, stepping out of the car. His demeanor was polished and his tone exuded confidence. "I couldn't help but notice you. May I have a word?" Sophie looked up, clearly caught off guard by the interruption. "Yes. Can I help you?" she asked, her tone polite but cautious. "My name is Daniel," David lied, offering a charming smile. "I saw you and couldn't resist introducing myself. I'd like to get to know you better. Maybe take you out for dinner." Sophie's expression shifted, her politeness giving way to suspicion. "I'm sorry, Mr. Daniel, but I'm not interested. I already have someone in my life." David nodded, maintaining his composure. "I understand, but perhaps I can change your mind. I'd be happy to offer you this." He gestured toward the car behind him. "And maybe this," he added, holding out a brand new phone he had purchased for the act. Sophie's eyes narrowed. "Are you trying to bribe me, Mr. Daniel? Because if you are, I'm not interested. I'm in love with someone, and no amount of money or gifts will change that." Despite her refusal, David pressed on, using every persuasive tactic he could think of. Finally, Sophie's patience wore thin. "Look, I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not someone you can buy. Please leave me alone." With that, she walked away, leaving David standing there impressed. When David returned to Raymond later that evening, he recounted the entire encounter with a proud smile. "Sir, she's the real deal. She didn't even flinch. She loves you, not what you can offer her." Raymond felt a wave of relief and joy wash over him, yet he knew there was still one more hurdle to overcome: telling Sophie the truth. Inspired by her loyalty, he decided the time had come to lay his cards on the table. The following evening, Raymond invited Sophie to a quiet park overlooking the city. The atmosphere was serene, with the twinkling lights of Lagos spreading out below them like a sea of stars. Sophie arrived wearing a simple yet elegant dress, her smile lighting up the night. "You wanted to talk?" she asked, taking a seat beside him on the park bench. "Yes," Raymond said, his voice steady but his hands trembling slightly. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I've been hiding from you." Sophie tilted her head, curiosity and concern mingling in her expression. "All right, I'm listening." Raymond took a deep breath. "Sophie, I'm not who you think I am. I'm not just a struggling graduate trying to make ends meet. The truth is, I am Raymond Johnson, the CEO of Johnson Enterprises." Sophie blinked, her expression unreadable. "What are you saying, Raymond?" "I'm a billionaire," he confessed, his words tumbling out in a rush. "Everything I told you about being jobless and struggling, it was a lie. I wanted to find someone who could love me for me, not for my money. That's why I disguised myself as an ordinary man. And Sophie, you've proven to me that you're that person. You're the only one who has ever seen me for who I truly am." Silence stretched between them, heavy and charged. Sophie looked away, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Raymond's heart pounded as he waited for her response. Finally, she turned back to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and disbelief. "So this has all been a test? A game to see if I'm good enough for you?" "No," Raymond said quickly, reaching for her hand. "It wasn't a game. I never meant to hurt you, Sophie. I needed to know if what we had was real." Sophie stood, pulling her hand away. "Real? How can I trust anything you've said when it's all been built on lies, Raymond? I opened my heart to you, and now you're telling me that you've been pretending this entire time?" Raymond stood as well, desperation creeping into his voice. "I know I was wrong to lie, but everything I feel for you is real. Please, Sophie, don't let this ruin what we have." Sophie shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "I need time to think. I don't know if I can do this right now." Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving Raymond standing alone in the park, his heart shattering with every step she took. The days that followed were some of the longest of Raymond's life. He called and messaged Sophie, but her responses were brief and distant. A part of him feared he had lost her for good, but he refused to give up hope. Finally, after a week of silence, Sophie agreed to meet him. Raymond arrived early at the small cafe where they had agreed to talk, his nerves frayed. When Sophie walked in, she looked as radiant as ever, but her expression was guarded. "Thank you for coming," Raymond said as she took a seat across from him. "I'm here to listen," Sophie replied, her tone neutral, "but I can't promise anything more." Raymond nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Over the next hour, he poured his heart out, explaining everything, his loneliness, his quest for genuine love, and how she had changed his life. He didn't hold back, laying bare every fear, every hope, and every regret. When he finished, Sophie sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Raymond, I appreciate your honesty, but trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. You hurt me deeply by lying, and it's going to take time for me to process everything." Raymond nodded, his heart heavy but hopeful. "I understand, and I'm willing to wait as long as it takes. Just know that I love you, Sophie. More than anything." As she left the cafe, Raymond felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a beginning. And for now, that was enough. Raymond had waited weeks for Sophie's response, each day feeling longer than the last. Though she hadn't completely shut him out, her guarded messages made it clear that she was still processing his confession. For the first time in his life, Raymond felt powerless, unsure of how to fix the damage he had caused. One morning he woke up to a message from Sophie. "Let's meet. There's something I want to say." Raymond's heart raced as he read the text. Was this the moment he had been waiting for, or would it bring the final blow to his hopes? He quickly responded, agreeing to meet her at the park where he had first revealed his secret. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the city, Raymond arrived at the park, his nerves on edge. Sophie was already there, standing by the fountain. She looked beautiful, yet distant, her expression unreadable. Raymond approached cautiously, his heart pounding. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. Sophie turned to face him, her eyes locking with his. "Raymond, I've thought a lot about everything you told me," she began. Her voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of emotion that made his chest tighten. "And while I'm still hurt by the lies, I can't deny that I have feelings for you." Raymond's breath hitched. But trust is the foundation of any relationship," she continued, "and right now that foundation is shaky. I need to know that you're willing to fight for this, for us. And not just with words. Actions, Raymond. That's what I need to see." Raymond nodded, determination lighting his eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes, Sophie. Just tell me how I can prove myself to you." Sophie hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Come meet my family," she said. "They mean everything to me, and their opinion matters. If you're serious about us, you'll have to win them over too." Though the request surprised Raymond, he didn't hesitate. "I'll do it," he said firmly. The following weekend, Raymond found himself standing in front of a modest bungalow in a quiet Lagos neighborhood. Sophie's family home was a stark contrast to the sprawling mansion he was used to, but it radiated warmth and love. As Sophie led him inside, Raymond felt the weight of her family's scrutiny. Her mother, a strong-willed woman with sharp eyes, greeted him first. "So you're the man my daughter has been talking about," she said, her tone neutral, but her gaze piercing. "Yes, ma'am," Raymond replied respectfully. "It's an honor to meet you." Sophie's younger siblings, twin boys no older than 10, peeked out from behind their mother, giggling as they whispered to each other. "Are you really a billionaire?" one of them blurted out, earning a sharp glance from their mother. Raymond chuckled, kneeling to their level. "That's what people say," he said with a wink, "but what matters is how you treat people, not how much money you have." The twins seemed satisfied with his answer and scampered off, leaving Raymond to face Sophie's father, a reserved man who observed the interactions silently. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but firm. "Raymond, my daughter is precious to us," he said. "She's worked hard to build her life, and we've always taught her to value honesty and integrity. Can you assure us that your intentions are pure?" Raymond met his gaze steadily. "Sir, Sophie is an incredible woman, and I'm lucky to have her in my life. I made mistakes by not being honest from the start, but my feelings for her are genuine. I'm here to earn her trust. And yours." The room fell silent as Sophie's father studied him. Finally, he nodded. "We'll see," he said simply. After dinner, which was filled with light conversation and a few probing questions, Sophie's mother pulled her aside. Raymond pretended not to notice as they spoke in hushed tones, but his nerves were fraying. When Sophie returned, her expression was unreadable. "You did well," she said softly, "but this is just the beginning. My parents are protective, and it'll take time for them to fully accept you." Raymond nodded, relief washing over him. "Thank you for giving me the chance." As they left her family's home, Sophie turned to him with a small smile. "You surprised me tonight, Raymond. Maybe this could work after all." But just as things seemed to be improving, a new challenge arose. A few days later, Raymond received an unexpected visit from his parents. They arrived unannounced at his mansion, their expressions grim. "Raymond, we need to talk," his mother said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Raymond led them into the grand living room, bracing himself for the conversation. His father, a stoic man with a commanding presence, spoke first. "We've heard about this girl you've been seeing," he said. "Sophie, is it? A school teacher from a modest background?" Raymond's jaw tightened. "Yes. Her name is Sophie, and she's the woman I want to be with." His mother sighed, her expression a mixture of frustration and disappointment. "Raymond, you have responsibilities. You're not just any man. You're a billionaire with a legacy to uphold. Marrying someone from her background, it's not appropriate." "Not appropriate," Raymond echoed, his voice rising. "You mean she's not rich enough for you? That's ridiculous." "It's not just about money," his father interjected. "It's about compatibility. She won't understand the pressures and expectations that come with being part of this family." Raymond stood, his anger bubbling over. "You don't even know her. She's smart, kind, and loyal. She's everything I've ever wanted in a partner." His mother's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. "We're not saying she's a bad person, Raymond, but we've already discussed this with the Bensons. Their daughter Brenda is a perfect match for you. She comes from a family of equal standing, and she's been interested in you for years." Raymond felt his stomach turn. "You've already decided for me? I'm not a child. I won't marry someone I don't love." "Love doesn't pay the bills," his father said bluntly. "Think about the future, Raymond. Think about what's best for the family." Raymond shook his head, his resolve strengthening. "I have thought about it, and what's best for me is Sophie. I'm sorry, but I won't change my mind." As his parents left, their disappointment was palpable. Raymond knew he had a battle ahead, but he was determined to fight for the woman he loved, no matter the cost. He wouldn't let anyone stand in the way of their future. Raymond stood at the window of his office, gazing out at the sprawling Lagos skyline, deep in thought. His confrontation with his parents had left him shaken but resolute. He couldn't deny the importance of his family's approval, but the idea of sacrificing his love for Sophie to satisfy their expectations was unbearable. Sophie wasn't just a woman he loved. She represented the authenticity and grounding he had searched for his entire life. Meanwhile, at his mansion, Raymond's parents were not about to let the matter rest. His mother, Clara, paced the opulent sitting room, her expression a mixture of frustration and determination. "He's being stubborn," she said to her husband, Patrick. "We can't let him throw away his future for some schoolteacher." Patrick nodded, his jaw set. "If Raymond won't listen to reason, we'll have to show her what's at stake. Clara, call the Bensons. Arrange for their daughter Brenda to visit us. Perhaps if Raymond spends some time with her, he'll see sense." 2 days later, Raymond returned home to find his parents waiting for him in the grand dining hall. Seated with them was Brenda Benson, a striking, beautiful woman dressed in a designer gown. Her presence immediately set Raymond on edge. He knew exactly what his parents were attempting. "Raymond, darling," Clara began with a practiced smile, "we thought it would be lovely to have dinner together as a family, and Brenda happened to be in town, so we invited her to join us." Raymond's lips thinned as he forced a polite nod. "Nice to see you again, Brenda," he said, his tone clipped. Brenda smiled warmly. "It's been too long, Raymond. You've been quite elusive lately." The meal was an exercise in endurance for Raymond. His parents and Brenda carried on as though this were a casual family gathering, but every comment and glance felt loaded. Brenda, for her part, seemed intent on charming Raymond, steering the conversation towards shared childhood memories and her recent travels. But Raymond's mind was elsewhere, replaying his last conversation with Sophie and wondering how she would feel about this forced dinner. Finally, as the meal concluded, Raymond stood abruptly. "If you'll excuse me, I have work to attend to," he said, ignoring his mother's disapproving look. Brenda rose as well. "Raymond, before you go, would you mind taking a walk with me? It's been ages since we've had a proper conversation." Raymond hesitated, but then nodded. It would be easier to get through the charade if he indulged her briefly. They strolled through the garden, the cool evening air doing little to ease Raymond's tension. "Raymond," Brenda began, her voice soft, "I know the situation must feel overwhelming, but I hope you know that I care about you. Our families have always been close, and I've always admired you." Raymond stopped walking, turning to face her. "Brenda, you're a wonderful person, and I respect you. But I'm in love with someone else, and that's not going to change." Her smile faltered, and for a moment a flash of frustration crossed her face. "Raymond, I'm not asking you to make a decision right now, but think about the future. Sophie can't offer you what I can. Together we could build something extraordinary." Raymond's expression hardened. "I'm sorry, Brenda, I won't marry someone I don't love. This conversation is over." Without waiting for her response, he turned and walked back to the house, his resolve unshaken. But as he entered the grand foyer, he was met with his mother's sharp gaze. "Raymond," she said, her tone icy, "you're being selfish. Do you have any idea how much this decision affects the rest of the family?" Raymond's temper flared. "Selfish? Wanting to marry the woman I love is selfish. You're the ones trying to control my life for the sake of appearances." Clara stepped closer, her voice lowering but losing none of its intensity. "We're trying to protect you. Marrying beneath your station will only bring problems. What about the company? The board will question your judgment." Raymond shook his head, his voice firm. "I don't care about what the board thinks, and I'm not marrying someone for their approval. This is my life, and I'll live it on my terms." The tension at home weighed heavily on Raymond, but his determination to fight for Sophie only grew stronger. Yet his parents weren't done. A few days later, Sophie received an unexpected visitor at the school where she worked. Clara Johnson arrived unannounced, her polished appearance drawing curious glances from the staff and students. "Mrs. Johnson," Sophie said, startled as the older woman approached her in the staff room. "What brings you here?" Clara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I thought it was time we had a chat, woman to woman. May we speak privately?" Sophie led her to an empty classroom, her heart pounding. Once inside, Clara's demeanor shifted, the facade of politeness falling away. "Sophie, I'll get straight to the point," she said. "You seem like a nice girl, but you have no place in Raymond's life. You're from different worlds, and forcing this relationship will only hurt both of you in the long run." Sophie's hands clenched at her sides, but she kept her voice steady. "With all due respect, Mrs. Johnson, my relationship with Raymond is between us. I love him, and he loves me. That's all that matters." Clara's eyes narrowed. "Love isn't enough. Raymond has responsibilities that you can't begin to understand. If you truly care about him, you'll step aside and let him fulfill his potential." When Sophie didn't respond, Clara reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a checkbook. She scribbled a figure and tore the check free, sliding it across the desk towards Sophie. "Take this," Clara said. "It's more money than you'll ever make as a teacher. Use it to build the life you deserve, far away from Raymond." Sophie stared at the check, her anger simmering beneath the surface. Slowly, she picked it up, tore it in half, and handed the pieces back to Clara. "Mrs. Johnson," she said calmly, "you can't buy my love or my loyalty. If Raymond chooses me, it will be because he wants to, not because I stepped aside." Clara's face darkened, but she said nothing as she stood and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the tiled floor. Sophie took a deep breath, her hands trembling. She knew this was only the beginning of the battle, but she was ready to fight for her love. When Raymond heard about his mother's visit, he was livid. He drove to Sophie's house that evening, determined to apologize. "Sophie, I had no idea she would do that," he said as they sat together on her small porch. "I'll talk to her and make sure it doesn't happen again." Sophie placed a hand on his. "Raymond, this isn't just about your mother. This is about us. If we're going to make this work, we have to be strong together." Raymond nodded, his resolve strengthening. "We will be. I promise you, Sophie, no matter what it takes, I'll fight for us." The battle lines had been drawn, and Raymond knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But as he looked into Sophie's eyes, he felt certain of one thing: their love was worth fighting for. Raymond's parents weren't giving up easily. Despite his clear stance, they escalated their efforts to pair him with Brenda Benson, the daughter of a powerful politician. Raymond, however, remained resolute, even as the tension between him and his parents reached new heights. But Clara and Patrick Johnson weren't ones to back down. One evening, Raymond returned home to find his parents waiting for him in the grand living room, their expressions unreadable. Beside them sat Brenda, dressed in an elegant evening gown and looking every bit the polished socialite. Raymond's eyes narrowed as he approached. "What's going on?" he asked sharply, his voice tinged with annoyance. "We thought it would be nice to have a family dinner," Clara said smoothly, her tone masking the underlying tension. "And Brenda is joining us." Raymond clenched his jaw but said nothing as they moved to the dining room. The meal was exquisite, prepared by the best chefs money could buy, but Raymond could hardly taste a thing. He felt like a pawn in his parents' game, and the atmosphere was thick with unspoken conflict. "Raymond," Brenda said, breaking the silence, "I've been thinking about what you said the other day. I respect your honesty, but I believe there's more to this than love. You and we share a history, a connection. Don't you think we owe it to our families to consider what we could build together?" Raymond's grip tightened on his fork. "Brenda, I've made my feelings clear. I'm not interested in a partnership built on convenience or family expectations. I'm in love with someone else." Brenda's eyes darkened, but she maintained her composure. "And do you think she can handle your world, Raymond? The scrutiny, the pressure, the responsibilities? Love isn't enough when you're in the public eye." Before Raymond could respond, Clara interjected, "That's exactly the point, Raymond. Sophie is a sweet girl, but she's not equipped for the life you lead. Brenda understands what it means to be part of a family like ours. She's already proven herself in social and political circles." Raymond pushed his chair back, his patience wearing thin. "This conversation is over. I'm not going to marry someone I don't love, no matter how qualified you think she is." He left the table, his heart pounding with frustration. But as he reached the staircase, he felt a presence behind him. Turning, he found Brenda standing there, her expression unreadable. "Raymond," she said softly, stepping closer, "I am not your enemy. I only want what's best for both of us. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment." Raymond shook his head, his voice firm. "My emotions are what make me human, Brenda, and they're telling me that Sophie is the one I want to be with." Brenda's gaze hardened. "You're making a mistake, Raymond. And I hope you realize that before it's too late." The next morning, Raymond received an unexpected call from Sophie. Her voice was tense, and he could tell she was upset. "Raymond, your mother came to see me again," she said. "This time she wasn't alone. She brought Brenda." Raymond's blood ran cold. "What? What did they say to you?" "They tried to convince me to leave you," Sophie said, her voice trembling with anger. "Brenda told me that I'm not good enough for you, that I'm holding you back. And your mother, she offered me money again, Raymond, this time even more than before." Raymond felt a surge of rage. "Sophie, I'm so sorry. I'll handle this. I promise you they won't bother you again." But Sophie's next words stopped him in his tracks. "Raymond, I can't keep doing this. I love you, but this constant battle with your family is exhausting. I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep fighting." Raymond's chest tightened. "Don't say that, Sophie. We'll get through this together. Please, just hold on a little longer." Sophie sighed. "I need time to think. I'll talk to you soon." She hung up before he could respond, leaving Raymond feeling helpless. He knew he had to take action, but he wasn't sure how to break the cycle of interference from his family. That evening, Raymond confronted his parents in their study. The tension in the room was palpable as he faced them, his expression set with determination. "This has to stop," he said firmly. "You've crossed every line by going to Sophie again. If you truly care about me, you'll respect my choices." Clara folded her arms, her expression cold. "We're doing this for your own good, Raymond. You may not see it now, but one day you'll understand." "What I understand," Raymond shot back, "is that you care more about appearances than my happiness. Sophie makes me happy. She's the person I want to spend my life with, and nothing you do or say will change that." Patrick, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. If you marry her, you'll be going against this family and everything we've worked for." Raymond's gaze didn't waver. If that's the price of loving Sophie, then so be it. The room fell into a heavy silence as Raymond turned and left, his resolve unshaken. But as he walked away, he couldn't ignore the nagging fear that his parents might still have one last move to make. Raymond's fears were realized when, a few days later, he received a cryptic message from an unknown number. "Meet me at the old pier. Come alone." Against his better judgment, Raymond decided to go. When he arrived, the pier was shrouded in darkness, the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore adding to the eerie atmosphere. He spotted a figure waiting for him under a dim street lamp. As he approached, he realized it was Brenda. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice filled with suspicion. Brenda stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "I wanted to talk to you, without your family or mine interfering. Raymond, I'm not the villain here. I truly care about you, and I want to help you see reason." Raymond shook his head. "Brenda, this has to stop. Whatever you and my parents are planning, it won't work." Brenda's lips curved into a faint smile. "You're underestimating me, Raymond, and you're underestimating the lengths people will go to protect what they value." Before Raymond could respond, he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw two men emerge from the shadows, their intentions clear from the menacing looks on their faces. "Brenda, what is this?" Raymond demanded, his voice rising. "A reality check," she replied coolly. "Sometimes people need a little push to make the right decisions." Raymond backed away as the men approached, his mind racing. He knew he was in danger, but he wasn't about to let fear dictate his actions. "You think this will change my mind," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "You're making a mistake, Brenda." The confrontation escalated, but Raymond's resolve only strengthened. He knew he had to protect not only himself, but also Sophie from the forces trying to tear them apart. Raymond barely escaped the encounter at the pier, his resolve intact. As the men had approached, he had kept his wits about him, calmly but firmly warning them that any harm to him would draw unwelcome attention to their employer. His calm demeanor and pointed words gave them pause, and Brenda, sensing she had overplayed her hand, had waved them off with a frustrated sigh. "This isn't over, Raymond," she had said, her voice cold. "You're making a grave mistake." Now, back at his mansion, Raymond paced his study, his mind racing. It wasn't just his parents and Brenda he had to contend with. The stakes were far higher than he had anticipated. If they were willing to resort to intimidation, what would they try next? He knew he had to take a stand, not just for himself, but for Sophie, for their future together. The next morning, Raymond summoned his driver, David, and confided in him. "They're pushing harder than ever," Raymond said, his tone grim. "Brenda crossed the line last night. I need to make sure Sophie is safe." David nodded. "I'll keep an eye on her, sir, but you should also think about bringing in security. If they see you're prepared, they might back off." Raymond considered this, then shook his head. "No, that would only escalate things. I need to outmaneuver them, not confront them head-on." A few days later, Raymond made a bold decision. He invited Sophie to his family's estate, determined to confront his parents in her presence and put an end to their interference once and for all. Sophie was hesitant, but Raymond's reassurances gave her the courage to agree. The estate was as intimidating as ever, its towering gates and sprawling gardens a stark contrast to the modest life Sophie was accustomed to. As they stepped inside, the grandeur of the entryway seemed to press down on her, but Raymond's presence by her side kept her steady. Clara and Patrick were waiting in the sitting room, their expressions a mixture of surprise and disapproval as Sophie walked in beside Raymond. "What is the meaning of this?" Clara demanded, her voice sharp. Raymond's gaze was unwavering. "This is Sophie. She's the woman I love, and I've brought her here so you can meet her properly." Patrick's jaw tightened, but Clara's reaction was more dramatic. "Raymond, this is highly inappropriate. You should have discussed this with us first." "I'm done discussing," Raymond said firmly. "You've met her already, behind my back. Now you'll face her openly and show her the respect she deserves." Sophie stood her ground, her posture straight and her gaze steady, despite the tension in the room. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson," she said, her voice calm but confident, "I understand your concerns, and I respect your desire to protect Raymond. But my love for him is genuine, and I'm here because I'm willing to fight for our future together." Clara's eyes narrowed. "You speak well, but love isn't enough in this world. Do you truly believe you can handle the pressures of being part of this family? The scrutiny, the expectations?" Sophie met her gaze without flinching. "I may not have grown up with wealth or privilege, but I've faced challenges and overcome them. I'm not afraid of hard work, and I'm not afraid of standing by Raymond, no matter what comes our way." For a moment the room was silent, the weight of Sophie's words hanging in the air. Patrick's expression softened slightly, though he said nothing. Clara, however, remained unconvinced. "Raymond, you're being reckless," Clara said, her voice tinged with desperation. "If you go through with this, you'll jeopardize everything we've built. The board, the investors, they won't take this lightly." Raymond stepped forward, his voice resolute. "Let them talk. I've spent my entire life living up to everyone else's expectations. This is the first time I'm making a choice for myself, and I won't let anyone take that away from me." The confrontation ended with no clear resolution, but Raymond's stance had been made clear. He and Sophie left the estate with a renewed sense of determination, though the battle was far from over. The following weeks brought a mix of small victories and new challenges. Raymond and Sophie grew closer, their bond strengthening as they faced each obstacle together. But Clara and Patrick were far from finished. They began leveraging their influence in subtle but effective ways, from spreading rumors about Sophie's intentions to attempting to isolate Raymond from his allies. One evening, as Raymond and Sophie shared dinner at a quiet restaurant, David arrived with urgent news. "Sir, there's something you need to see," he said, handing Raymond a tablet. On the screen was an article from a prominent gossip blog, filled with insinuations about Sophie's character and her relationship with Raymond. The headline read, "Billionaire's romance under fire. Is his new love a gold digger?" Sophie's face paled as she read the article. "Raymond, this is awful. Who would do this?" Raymond's jaw tightened. "It's my parents," he said, his voice low but steady. "They're trying to discredit you and force me to back down, but it won't work." Sophie shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "Raymond, this is more than just us now. They're attacking my reputation, my life. I don't know how much more I can take." Raymond reached across the table, taking her hands in his. "Sophie, listen to me. They can try to tear us apart, but they'll only succeed if we let them. I'll fight this with everything I have. You just have to trust me." Sophie nodded, though the fear in her eyes remained. Raymond knew that proving their love was real would take more than words. It would take action and a plan to outsmart the forces working against them. Behind the scenes, Raymond began working tirelessly to counter his parents' influence. He reached out to trusted allies within his company and the media, carefully crafting a narrative that showcased Sophie's strength and integrity. Meanwhile, David kept a close watch on Clara and Patrick's movements, gathering evidence of their interference. The turning point came when Raymond decided to host a charity gala, inviting prominent figures from across Lagos to witness the truth about his relationship with Sophie. The event was a resounding success, with Sophie captivating the guests with her poise and intelligence. Even some of Raymond's harshest critics began to soften their stance. But the final blow came when Raymond confronted his parents with the evidence David had gathered. Standing in their grand sitting room, he laid out everything: the attempts to bribe Sophie, the smear campaign, the threats. Clara and Patrick were stunned into silence. "This ends now," Raymond said, his voice steady but firm. "You've pushed me to the brink, but I won't let you destroy the best thing that's ever happened to me. Sophie and I are moving forward, with or without your blessing." For the first time, Clara's composure cracked. She looked at her son with a mixture of guilt and regret. Patrick, though silent, seemed to reconsider his stance. The weight of their actions had become undeniable. "Raymond," Clara began, her voice trembling, "we only wanted what was best for you." "Then trust me to decide what that is," Raymond replied. In the days that followed, the tension began to ease. Though Clara and Patrick still had reservations, they agreed to step back and allow Raymond to chart his own path. For the first time in months, Raymond and Sophie felt a sense of relief, though they both knew the journey ahead would not be without its challenges. A month later, Raymond and Sophie stood hand in hand at the edge of a serene lake, where they had chosen to hold a private engagement ceremony. Surrounded by a small group of their closest friends and allies, they exchanged promises to continue fighting for their love against all odds. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to this channel so you will be first to be notified when I upload my next story. And tell us where you are watching from in the comments. See you in the next one.